Good afternoon and welcome back, everybody. This is US Home Talk. We are live here every Wednesday at noon and on demand at ushometalk.com and everywhere you find your podcasts. We are your hosts, Mike Overson with Illuminate Home Loans. I have Jason Walgrave here with the Walgrave Real Estate Group and the Minnesota Real Estate Team at Remax Advantage Plus, giving us the finger wave there. And we also have Evan Little with us today. He is our producer and he's our insurance monarch, Evan Little with Paragon Companies. Not with us today is Marcus Walgrave. He's usually on the show with us. You like that? The monarch, the insurance monarch. Marcus Walgrave, he's with Hague Realtors. He's not going to be with us today, but we do want to mention Marcus there. He's usually on the show with us from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So we will be taking your questions during our show today. So anything and everything dealing with real estate. The call-in number is 612-234-7585. Again, 612-234-7585. And you can also submit questions in the comment section on Facebook, and we'll answer them live on air. And we'll also be answering questions that have come in throughout the week and that were emailed to us. And then any calls that we received during the week with questions, we'll cover those today as well. So Jason, busy times in our industry right now.
Yes,
it's good. You know, I look at the last 2 to 3 weeks. It has definitely picked up activity wise on our end, and I see that with my own personal business, and I just see it in our branch as a whole.
I
seeing
agree.
the same thing in your end?
It's crazy busy. That 4th of July part of the summer, typically things, slow down a little bit because a lot of folks are on vacation and a lot of agents are on vacation. But I mean, boy, it's been a pretty phenomenal second quarter of 23. And, even with the rates higher than they were last year at this time, I think that most folks don't realize you've got options. And you see the 30-year fixed rate out there. There's other options out there. And today we're going to be talking about, what those look like. And so, I got in the business in 99, so 99, 2000, the average 30-year mortgage rate was like 8, right around 8% at that time. And I don't recall that being a big talking point or, it wasn't really a concern for buyers because that's just what it was. And so, certainly, buyers, I think the majority of them have accepted the fact that rates are higher. But we want to talk about that. You don't have to take that higher fixed 30-year rate. And there's other options. And we're going to talk about how to, have access or get access to those options.
Yep. And one thing to remember, and this, Jason, and Evan knows this as well. Everyone's situation is different, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 31 factors that go into the type of interest rate that someone might get. Some of those are little obscure, right? That don't come into play in everything. So we've narrowed it down to basically 17 main factors that come into play with everyone's situation that might affect your interest rate. Credit score, down payment amount, property type, you name it. There's all these different factors that go into the type of interest rate. So what you see advertised
that's
out
pretty
there,
crazy.
It is, and a lot of people don't think about that. It's aren't just the rates. Like people call me up and be like, what's the rate today? It's not like I just have a chart on the wall that says, oh, everyone gets, 6.75 today,
Right.
It's not like that at all. And so here's an example that you guys will like, it'll floor you, right? So tale of two borrowers, okay? They both have a 750 credit score. They're both buying a single family house. They're both putting 5% down. Okay. The only difference between the two is one makes $95,000 a year and one makes $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what the interest rate is for the person that makes $100,000 a year in that example?
I feel like it's probably higher because for some reason, because you're asking a trick question, I think, but the guy with the higher income probably has a slightly higher rate.
So that person's rate today. So now this is the Minneapolis metro area. That person's particular rate today would be 7.125. Okay.
Yeah.
7.125. Now the person who makes $95,000 a year, the interest rate for that person is 6.375.
It's almost a point difference.
It's almost a full percent difference. Well, how does that make any sense, Mike? Like, how can that be? They're exactly the same, but they only make $5,000 different, per year, right? They only make $5,000 different per year. Why? How can that be? Well, there's certain programs out there, like there's a standard conventional program out there that says, look, if you're underneath 80% area median income for whatever market you're in. So in the Minneapolis market, that number is $99,440 for the year. If you're underneath that, you get reduced interest rates and you get reduced mortgage insurance costs. So the person who makes $100,000 doesn't qualify for that because they make too much. And now they have their quote unquote standard rate, right? Yeah. Which is over here. And then if you're underneath the $99,440 for the year, under that same scenario, now you're at 6.375 today.
That's wild.
Right? So it's those types of things that a lot of people don't know that are out there. That's why it can be so different. Your neighbor right across the street could have got an interest rate a full percent higher or a full percent lower than you, strictly just based on income level for them. So when people are talking and neighbors are talking, oh, what'd you get and what you get? And then we get the call. It's like, well, he got this over here. Little differences can literally make that, right? Little differences in your personal profile can make that big of a difference in the type of interest rate you can get because of how the programs are set up. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. Because I think most people kind of figure like credit score, we know credit score affects it, and then probably down payment. I think those are the two things that most people think are the only driving factor to what your interest rate will be. Right. But 17, that's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, right. So it's a lot, and we've covered that before, and brought up the list and things like that on the show. Actually, I think you were gone for that show. I think it was just me and Marcus on that show when we brought that up and went through there. So there you go. But yeah, so so that's an example there of how it can be, so different between borrowers. Another thing too that comes into play is loan amount. So I'm helping an elderly woman. She's buying a condo. It's a $200,000 condo. She's putting $100,000 down. Sold her house and has a big down payment. So she just wants to get into a smaller condo. Easy maintenance, easy living there. Her loan amount's $100,000. Well, because Luminate is now a bank, we have access to different programs that non-banks don't have access to. Her particular rate, I got her locked in at 5.5.
That's fantastic.
On a 30-year fixed.
Yeah.
And there's incentives for loan amounts. So, it's like 85,000 and under is one bucket, 100,000 to down to 85,000 is another bucket, and so on. And so if we get lower loan amounts coming in the door, as far as what we have access to as a bank lender, we have access to those programs that allow for lower interest rates, just strictly based on loan amount. Yep. So again, if her loan amount would have been over 200,000, or I think over 225, because I think it stops at 225, but over 225, she would have been in the high sixes. Yeah. But instead she ended up at 5.5 because of it. So
that's incredible. That's a great rate.
So, yeah, so we're talking about interest rates today, right? And and the different options that might be out there. Going back to the income level stuff, a lot of times when I get a married couple that comes in, if I can run the loan at just one of their names and use just one of their incomes, and that one person's income is underneath the $99,440 mark, that's a great way to basically save them a ton of interest.
Yeah.
And get them a lower interest rate. Let's just run it in just one of your names versus both. Now we can use just that one person's income, and if we can fit into that program, we just saved them, 3/4 of a point roughly.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I have recommended for nearly 2 decades. Is if you have the ability, if you're a couple and you have the ability to buy the home in just one of your names, that's the route to take. And so, what a lot of people don't realize is that if a couple goes out and they buy a house, and let's say they have a $400,000 mortgage, if they're both on that mortgage, they are both independently responsible for $400,000. So it significantly decreases your buying power for future things. Maybe it's an investment property, or maybe it's a second home. And so there's things that you can do to position yourself to have more lending options and more buying power in the future if you set it up correctly from the beginning.
Yep. Yeah. And just because just one person's on the loan doesn't mean that just that one person's on title. Both of you can still go on the title to the house. So you do have the equal rights to the property. It's just that you're splitting up the financing side of things, and you're going to put the loan on maybe on this house under one person's name, put the loan on this other house under that person's name, and you split up the financing part of it, but you're still both on the title to all the properties. So you have equal rights on it.
Yep, for sure.
So let's talk about, so we're talking about buy downs a little bit today, because one of those things was the topic of the show is what the heck is a rate buy down anyways. So that was one of the things we want to talk about as far as, that's something that can help get you a lower interest rate on your loan. So what is a rate buy down? So a rate buy down, if you've ever heard of paying points, buying your rate down, they're all the same thing. You're basically paying a chunk of money at the time of closing. So a one-time cost at the time of closing in exchange for a lower interest rate. So a lot of people might be asking, well, why would you do that then? You're increasing basically your closing costs. You're increasing the dollar amount you need to bring to closing for a lower interest rate. Well, over time, right? So over time, the theory or the goal is that, okay, if I pay $5,000 today, over time, hopefully I'm saving myself $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 worth of interest, by the time the end of the loan comes around. So that's why you would do that. But whenever it comes to money, there's always a time component, right? So if you're going to pay $5,000 now, and that $5,000 is going to save you, $200 a month, you got to keep that loan. If I take it over here, so 5 divided by 200, you got to keep that loan for 25 months.
Yep.
Right? At least 25 months. Because if you don't, you paid more up front than what you saved along the way. Now, if you keep that loan longer than 25 months, now you're ahead of the game, $200 for every single month after 25 months that you keep that loan.
Yep. And that's a good question to ask yourself. And we ask our clients too, is how long you think you're going to stay in the property, but there's, I think you're going to give an example about the builder that did a big rate buy down and how much that's going to save our clients over the, next 5, 10, 15 years. It's a big number.
Yeah. So we can actually talk about that now, because there's two types of buy downs now. There's a permanent buy down where, let's say your rate is 7% for easy numbers. You pay the $5,000 for the rate buy down. And let's say that gives your rate down to 6.5. Okay. You got that 6.5 now on a permanent rate buy down. You got the 6.5 throughout the entire life of the loan. So you'll pay 6.5% there for the 30 years if you do a 30-year fixed. And so there's also temporary buy downs. So a temporary buy down, also commonly known as a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down. That's where your interest rate is only lower for the first few years. So for an example, if it's a 2-1 buy down, your interest rate for the first year of the loan is 2% lower than where your end rate was, what we call your end rate is going to be. For the second year on the loan, it's going to be 1% lower than your end rate. And then years 3 through 30, your rate is going to be then at that next level up for the remainder of the loan. So classic 2-1 buy down, again, if your end rate is 7%, your interest rate for the first year would be 5%. Your interest rate for the second year would be 6%. And then you'd have 7% on your loan for the interest rate from years 3 through 30.
Yeah. And that buy down, Mike, that would be less. It would cost less than a permanent buy down, right?
Well, it depends, right? How far are you going to buy it down? How far are you going to buy the permanent down?
Yeah.
Right. Because you can buy it way down, so let's say your rate is 7% and you want to buy it down to 6%.
Yeah.
That's probably going to cost you 4 points of your loan amount.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a $300,000 loan amount, 4 points, it's costing you $12,000 to buy a permanent rate buy down from 7% down to 6%.
Yep.
So, so it's pretty powerful. So let's focus on the permanent buy down for now, and we'll switch to the temporary buy down a little bit. So I have an example of the power of the interest rate. So like Jason, you mentioned, there's a builder out there that was going to do a buy down there. And so I came up with a flyer. Evan, if you could share that flyer. So here's the power of the interest rate, and here's that flyer that I was talking about. So this is an example of a $700,000 purchase price. And we even on this one, what I did is I basically built the cost into the loan amount. So in this particular example, this $700,000 purchase price, where you can either take $30,000 off the price of the house, or you can take that $30,000 and buy the interest rate down. Excuse me, it's $25,000 is the cost here. So if you do a $700,000 house and you say, hey, builder, you know what? I don't want to do this rate buy down thing. I just want 25 grand off the house. What happens is that your loan amount, if you put 10% down, your loan amount is $607,950. Your interest rate $675. You can see your payment there is $39.43. You're going to pay $811,000 of interest over the life of that loan. Okay, so now let's take that same $700,000 house and let's say, okay, builder, you know what? Let's take that $25,000. Let's buy my rate down to $499 with it. So instead of taking a price reduction of 25 grand, let's take that 25 grand. Let's buy my rate down with it. So now your loan amount would be 630,000 in that case. So again, it's a 10% down off of 700,000. So your loan amount 630. Your rate now, because of the 25 grand you're using to buy the rate down, is now 499. Your monthly payment is 3378, and you're paying a total of $586,000 of interest over the life of that loan. So your total savings then is $565 less per month if you take that 25 grand and buy your rate down versus doing a price reduction. And you're saving yourself $225,000 over the life of the loan. Through the amount of interest you're going to save by taking the lower interest rate versus the discounted price.
That's a big number. I mean, that's a big number. The monthly savings is a big number. And then you look at the total savings that's you're creeping up on $250,000 in interest savings. So, and
it can be a tough thing for people to wrap their head around. It's like, why wouldn't I take the 25 grand off the price?
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people think that way, and it's not a bad way to think. We're not saying it's wrong, but you also want to look at your options out there too, because in this particular example, as you can see, that the 25,000 is way better off being used to buy that interest rate down versus taking a price reduction on the house.
Yep, for sure.
And again, there's a time component to it again. So if you were planning on only being in this house for a couple of years, that might change a little bit, because we're running everything here off of 30 years, a 30-year loan. So over time, over 30 years, you'd save yourself $225,000 in interest. If you shorten that up to 2 years, obviously that difference is much, much less. So whenever you're talking anything money, right? And it could be real estate, it could be mortgages, it could be, some sort of other financial investment. Yep. There's always a time component to that. And so then that's why everyone's situation might be different. You got to just talk that over with your loan officer to come up with the best solution for you.
Yeah. So if you take a look at this one, for example, the monthly savings, so at 3.68 years, so a little more than 3.5 years into it, you're at par or break even. And then everything beyond that, you're saving $565 a month. So right. In this case, it's going to take, 3.6 years. And then you've got all of that buy down back. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to be there more than that time, then it makes sense to do it. And especially if, in this case, the builder is, it's not coming out of your pocket. So this is a builder incentive. They're offering, either the $25,000 discount in price or $25,000 towards your rate. I mean, it definitely makes sense to do that. And builders right now, depending on the builder, but there's a lot of builders out there willing to make concessions and to give incentives to buy their product. And so, I think that, there's a handful of mid-size local or private builders that, especially if they've got it, if it's a spec home that's been sitting there for a bit, they're going to be more open to getting creative with the financing stuff. So, it's so important that when you're buying a home, that you are aligning yourself with the best representation that's out there. That includes your real estate agent and team, and it includes your mortgage professional and team. And it's, you need the representation if you want to get the most and best options when it comes to financing and, and purchase price. Because this is this is kind of a hand-in-hand example where, the agent was able to get $25,000 from the builder. You got a loan officer, Mike and his team that really know what they're doing. And so we're able to, if this particular client stays in the house for 30 years, it's going to save them almost $250,000, and not, I tell you what, most loan officers do not have the knowledge, experience, and skill set that Mike and his team have. And Mike, how many times a month are you coming in and saving the day and saving the loan because another loan officer, either they're, maybe they're newer in the business, or they're just not aware of all of the different options that are out there for buyers. And, and some of them are just, they're just, it's a numbers game, right? And so they're more about, volume and getting deals done and getting them closed. But I know how hard you and your team work, and I know the hours that you guys put in. And, it's not about volume. It's about getting the best deal for each client and meeting each client's goals. And they're all different. All the goals are different. That's why you ask a lot of questions. You dig deep I just talking to a guy yesterday that the only reason he got his multiple offer situation, only reason his deal got accepted, because the listing agent knows you.
Right.
So you're the loan officer on the deal. It's in multiple offers. Listing agent is like, oh yeah, I know Mike and his team, and put you to the top of the list because they're confident it's going to get done. And so, this particular person, they wouldn't have got the house if you weren't the loan officer on that one, And so these are things that are, you guys do an excellent job, and it's awesome to be partnered with you.
Yeah. The mortgage and real estate's a small world.
Yes.
Real estate agents know real estate agents know loan officers, and vice versa, right? Especially in your local market. So if you have the reputation of that, you're trustworthy and you get deals closed on time, and you can work through potential issues that might come up, definitely puts you at the top of the list. So whenever someone sees, a pre-approval letter come over from us, or an offer coming over from Jason and his team, they know what to expect on the other end. They're going to get communication. They're going to get problem solving skills. They're going to get experience, dealing with, how, you've been in the business for how long now?
This is my 24th year.
24th year.
Yeah.
I just started my 20th year. So
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. We're so old.
Man, next year is going to be, what is that? Quarter of a century. It's so dumb to say that out loud.
No kidding, right?
I remember when I hit the decade mark, and I was like, dude, I've been doing this a decade. I have been doing it a long, long time. So it is, but it's important. And our consumers, our clients and customers, we believe that they deserve the best possible representation, the best service out there. And it, a lot of that comes from our experience, but a lot of it comes from our willingness to do a little extra and to dig a little deeper and to, put in some extra work to make sure that, we're presenting all the options for them. And you guys do the same thing, Mike. And so it's a great team, because I think, if you talk to, just about any client that we're working with together, or we're working on the real estate and you guys are doing the mortgage, those clients, 99 out of 100 of them are very, very pleased with, with the services that they've received. And that's a part of our goal. That's what we want to provide.
Yeah. Very common for them to say, well, that was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I love that comment. When we're at closing and they're like, man, that's easy to buy a house. That was easy.
If your agent and your loan officer and kind of everyone that you surround yourself with has done their job, then you should be saying that, right?
Yes.
Buying a house shouldn't be stressful. Now, moving might be stressful, right? That's a different thing. Packing up your house and moving, we can't help you with that. We can get you in touch with some great movers, but we can't help you with that. But the actual process of making offers, getting offers accepted, managing, and working through buying a house, if you line yourself up with the right people, you should be saying that at the end. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. If it's stressful to you and you have anxiety over it, and you can't sleep at night, that you're not with the right team. You're not with the right team if that's the way it's going.
Yep, I agree.
So let's talk about temporary buy downs. So we talk about permanent buy downs, right? You take this chunk of money, you buy your rate down, you got the lower rate for the entire 30 years. Boom, that's easy, right? Temporary buy downs. So the temporary buy down is where your interest rate is less for a certain amount of time. The most common example is a 2-1 buy down.
Yep.
Okay. So 2-1 buy down, again, your interest rate is lower by 2% for the first year, lower by 1% for the second year. From years 3 through 30, then it's back to your starting rate, if you will, or your end rate. So what's the cost of that? Well, the cost of that is the amount of money that you save per month by having the lower rate. Okay. So what does that mean? So let's say you're doing a $400,000 loan amount and your end rate is, let's just say 7%. Okay. And your first year is you're starting at 5%. So what's the payment difference between 5% and 7% on a $400,000 loan? Let's just say for easy numbers, it's $500. Okay. So $500 is what you're saving per month. Okay. 500 times 12 months. That is $6,000. So that first year costs $6,000 because that's what you're saving in monthly payments by having the lower interest rate. Now, year number 2, your rate goes to 6%. So what's the difference between 7% and 6%? Well, let's just say it's $250 for an easy number, right? So now we have $250 over 12 months. So now that cost is $3,000 for that year. Okay. So $6,000 for the first year, $3,000 for the second year. The total cost is $9,000.
Yep.
So it would cost you $9,000 then in that example to do a 2-1 buy down. So you get the temporary payment relief for the first couple of years, and then it goes to quote unquote your end rate for years 3 through 30.
Yeah.
So now the caveat with the temporary buy down is that it has to be paid for by the seller. Buyer cannot pay for it. Because really think about it. Really what all the temporary buy down is that the interest rate actually does not change in your loan. Right. So when you get your closing documents, your interest rate, your end rate 7%, everything shows 7%. Here's your payment at 7%. Here's your interest rate at 7%. Everything's calculated over 7%. What the seller is doing is the seller is basically subsidizing your monthly payment for the first 2 years.
Yep.
So we're going to collect $9,000 in our example from the seller and put it in a side account, put it in an escrow account on the side. For the first year, we're going to take $500 a month out, and we're going to reduce your payment by $500 a month, right? Second year, we're going to take $250 a month out, and we're going to lower your payment by $250. So by the end of the second year, now that side account or that escrow account is now at 0. And now you're paying the full payment on your own from there moving forward.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Mike. So you guys have at Luminate Bank, you've got a, if anybody wants to refinance, so let's say, they lock in, close on a loan this month, and then this fall rates drop down to 5%, 30-year fixed rates, 5%. You've got some incentives for refinancing. And then my question would be, what happens to that money that was used for the buy down?
Right. Yeah, you bring up a good point. So if you do a temporary buy down, right, that money, that $9,000 in our example, sit in a side account. So let's say you get through the entire first year, and you've used $6,000 of that money. So you got $3,000 left. Boom. Interest rates are low enough to refinance.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I got $3,000 left in that account over here, right? What happens with that?
Yeah.
You can use that money however you want to. You can lower the principal balance with it. You can use it to pay closing costs on the refinance. You can kind of apply it how you want to. So that money just doesn't go away. That money sits in that side account, and you can use it as long as there's money left over in there. You can use it however you want to. So that's the benefit then of the temporary. That's one of the things that the temporary buy down has over the permanent buy down, because the permanent buy down, you pay the money today, you get the lower interest rate, boom, it's gone. It's just done, right?
Yep.
Temporary buy down, money goes in the side account, and you kind of just pull it out to subsidize your payment. Any money that's left over at the time of the refinance, you can use it to your benefit how you want to.
That's pretty awesome. I love it.
So, yeah, and we have the buy now refi program. So, I keep saying there's a time component to everything, right? So a lot of people now are like, well, do I do a rate buy down? Does it make sense to do a rate buy down? Well, it depends on what you think is going to happen with interest rates, right? If you think interest rates are going to be, so let's say your rate's 7% today, and if you think interest rates are going to go down to, 6%, 5.75, 5.5, whatever, sometime in the next couple of years, well, it doesn't make sense to do a rate buy down today then. Don't put the money into it and buy your rate down today, because you're not going to keep the loan you're going to get today long enough to actually make sense to pay that money up front. Wait for interest rates to go down far enough. And then if you want to buy it down even further at that point, that's when you'd want to stick your money into it.
Yeah.
But if you're on the other side of the pendulum to say, look, I think rates are going to stay where they're at. I don't think they're going to go low enough to refinance in the next 4 or 5 years. Now it starts making sense to do the rate buy down and pay the additional money today to get that lower rate, because you're going to keep that loan today long enough then to break even and actually make some money on the back end from it.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff.
So, we got phone lines open. If you want to call us, for free to join our conversation, 612-234-7585. That number is, it's live 24/7.
24/7.
And that's on your hip, right? That goes right to you, Jason?
It does. Yep. And it's got, you can text that line, and then we will connect you with any of our fantastic partners. Oh, guys, you got to check out our new website, ushometalk.com. Yeah. So Liz did a phenomenal job getting that put together. It looks, I think it looks fantastic.
Absolutely.
It is. I think it looks fantastic. And I will say our old website, it was a bit dated.
Old. Like us.
Very.
Our old website looks like us. The new website looks like us 20 years ago. Something like that, less gray hair. Yeah, less gray hair on our new website for sure.
But check it out, folks, ushometalk.com. It's a great site, and you get to connect with all of our fantastic show partners directly to their websites. A lot of really good information. We've got all of our past shows that are on there as well. We are, of course, we're on all of the, there you go, Evan. Thanks for putting that out there. And then you can find us via podcast on all the major places where you find your podcast. So I think most of our listeners listen during different hours. We appreciate everyone that comes on live on Wednesdays, and then however and whenever you listen to us later in the week. We appreciate that. So
absolutely. You boys, you guys got any other questions on the buy downs, the interest rate stuff? Do you want my prediction? You want my prediction on what I think is going to happen?
I do. I want your rate prediction.
Actually, I want your guys' first. I want to see what non-mortgage industry people are thinking about interest rates.
So I am very confident that that interest rates next year will be quite a bit lower than where they're at now. It being an election year, if you look at the historically election years and interest rates are lower during those years, and so, but I mean, my hope is that the rates go down, end of summer, early fall, into that, I mean, high fives would be spectacular. But I thought we were going to be in the high fives right now, in June. And so, I guess I'm a little more uncertain than I was before. But Evan, what do you think?
10%.
You think they're going 10%?
So? You think they go up?
10%.
Okay. And that's why. So that's why I ask. Because Evan's not the first person to tell me that, and we think he may be joking, but I think he's actually thinking that it could go there. So, and that's the exact reason why I asked, because the Yoda of real estate, right? We all know him, Steve Perkins, the Yoda of real estate. He thinks they go up before they go down too.
Interesting.
So he thinks 8 to 9 is where they're going at some point before they go back down to where we think they're going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think 10% is going to happen. So if it does, Evan, you need to change industries and probably come start working for us. if we look at all of June, right? So from June 1st to today's June 28th, it's the first 30-day run that we've had where rates hasn't really changed more than 0.25% from top to bottom for the entire month.
Yeah.
It's been real steady through June, which if you look the previous 5 months to June, it looked like an EKG, right? Yeah, it's up, it's big up, big down, small down, and all of a sudden another big up, and it was kind of all over the board a little bit. So I'm curious now, like, is that the sign of things are settling in? You know what I mean? It's like settling in and we're not wavering too much. And is it going to be like that for a while here? I do think in general, moving through the rest of the year, if we look at December, the end of December versus today, I think the end of December does have lower interest rates. I think we're probably, in general, 0.5% probably lower today or in December than we are today. It's not going to be a straight line there. You know what I mean? There's going to be the waves and ups and downs, but in general, I think that's what's going to happen. So we'll see. That's my prediction. I don't know. You get into next year, it's like, it's a little too far out just because of how unpredictable it has been.
Sure.
I'm definitely hoping for 5s. If we can be in the 5s, anywhere in the 5s, I think that's going to be great. I think we're winning at that point. If we can get anywhere in the 5s next year and sustain somewhere in the 5s, that's really all we need. I was talking the other day to someone too. It's like, it's not necessarily the interest rate. It's the people who are looking for a house now. It's when I get pre-approved, my interest rate was 6.5, and then 3 weeks later it was 7.25, and now my payment just went up. So now I'm kind of like, okay, so now I got to adjust my price range. Well, then 3 weeks after that, it's down to 6.25.
Yeah.
Well, now my price range has changed again. Now I can look at different houses and stuff. It's like just hold a tighter level so people can plan and budget. I think that would be more helpful than the wild swings, or even more helpful than just hitting the 5s for a hot second and bouncing out of it and stuff like that. So I'm thinking June, just what I'm seeing in June. Again, it's the first 30-day run we've had for an entire year where rates have traded in that tight of a spot. Basically within 0.25% for the entire month. So I think that's a good thing, and I think that's maybe why we've seen some uptick in activity, because it's people can budget and prepare and plan when it's steady like that.
Agree. Yep. Agree.
So, well, interesting. So that is going to basically conclude our show for the end of the day. We appreciate everyone listening in today. We are here every Wednesday from noon until basically 1, taking your calls throughout the week and answering your questions live. I am Mike Overson with Luminate Home Loans, Jason Walgrave with the Walgrave Real Estate Group at RE/MAX, Advantage Plus, and of course, Evan Little, our producer here. Thanks for listening. We're signing off.